season is upon us. We run down the top titles of the year. Plus, we race around the track with Kermit and Beaker. Stick around, it's game time. Welcome to Gamespot TV at Metreon in San Francisco. I'm Kate Patello.
And I'm Adam Sessler. Now, we got a chance to see Munch's Odyssey. This is the next installment in the Quintology. We saw it at E3, and the game looked absolutely stunning.
So we decided we wanted to take a closer look at the game by talking to its masterminds, Lauren Lanning and Sherry McKenna.
Munch is an animal testing victim. He's the last of his kind. He's the sole survivor of his species. And where is he? He's in the pharmaceutical research facility. And so, in the beginning, you're breaking him out of the facility. And then his empathy is towards other creatures that are being trapped, that are being, whether it's a bear trap, a mouse trap, lab rabbits or rats, that's what his empathy lies. Munch's interest, ideally, is bringing back his species from the verge of extinction. Video games today have just been loaded with challenge. The big hits and all that, it's just been interested in challenge and violence. But the aspect of using it as a storytelling art form medium, which it's completely powerful to use for, really hasn't been being addressed by the industry. And that was one of the opportunities we saw. We go, look, this is going to be the most powerful medium of the 21st century, hands down. So let's play with this medium, and people appreciate something smart. It makes it more intriguing. It makes it more interesting. And that's what it should be about.
The other, of course, big thing is violence. Violence in video games. And that was a big concern about it.
It's almost frightening the level of the violence that we can achieve if we so choose. And the realism of how the characters are dying, getting hit, or suffering pain, being tortured, whatever. But it's not what we want to do. So what we wanted to do is we go, look, there is something that's very fun about the shooting experience. There's something visceral about that experience. But how do we turn that on its head to give it more comedic value, to make it not dopey, not childish, but make it intellectually more intriguing, and yet without the gruesome gore aspects? And so what we did was we designed that the industrial forces of Oddworld, what they're doing is they're firing addictive consumer products at characters. So instead of the character dying when he gets hit 10 times, the 10th time a bottle of brew pops up off his head, his beer cans are bouncing off of him, and then when he gets hit, that brew will land in his mouth, go, he drinks it, now he's addicted, now you can get him to come work in your factory. If it's addicted employees, the natives have been rounded up, being shot with addictive consumer products, and now they're working for factories. If you rescue them out of the factories, you got to take them to rehab before they'll work for you back in a native environment.
I can't find anybody.
Comedy is a critical element that's largely lacking in this industry, and we're going to inject it in. So it shouldn't be about, I'm getting there, challenge, I won. That's one component of it, but we don't care about that when we watch a movie. We want to laugh, we want to feel things from the heart.
What we're doing basically is consumerism versus mysticism. And if we can disguise it with comedy, and you can laugh and still get what's going on, that's the goal for us at least.
It's not about being on a soapbox, it's about having richer material. And the more it deals with dilemmas that are troubling our own soul as a nation, as a planet, as a global people, then the closer it hits to home and the more people tend to relate to it and go, yeah, it's really something there. We're not saying think this, we're not saying think that, but what we are saying is think. And that's why our characters don't solve all the problems with guns and with hatchets.
In an interview on HappyPuppy.com, Lauren Lanning was talking about the game's game speak and strat elements and said, imagine Age of Empires being controlled by Mario, and you start to get the idea.
Yeah, but does Mario have enough fingers to play Age of Empires? Here's some game news.
Microsoft announced that it has signed some of the best game development talent to create exclusive content for the Xbox video game console under the Microsoft label. Microsoft unveiled a list of 18 studios, including Peter Molyneux's Lionhead Satellites. Infogrames officially announced that the Dreamcast version of Unreal Tournament will be playable online via Sega's high-speed console gaming network, SegaNet. Originally developed by Epic Games, Unreal Tournament for the Dreamcast is being developed by Secret Level in San Francisco and will be published by Infogrames. Superman will soon step onto game systems once again, courtesy of a partnership between Infogrames, DC Comics, and Warner Brothers. The license with DC Comics and Warner Brothers consumer products allows Infogrames to create games based on the Superman comic books for the Sega, Sony, and Nintendo consoles.
To find out more about goings-on in the game industry, come to the Gamespot TV website.
Or you can spend a little more time with Lauren Lanning and Sherry McKenna in streaming video. Coming up on Gamespot TV, football is upon us as we look at this season's top players. Plus, the mitochondria are mutating and the results are rather unpleasant. Season again, which means lots of Raiders games for me and lots of video games for you.
Now, there are just so many football games out there that we've assumed the horrible burden of having to play a bunch of them, and all of it for you.
Not too much has changed from Game Breaker 2000 to 2001, but that's not all that bad a thing considering how last year's version was pretty good. In terms of gameplay, 2001 is virtually identical to last year's incarnation. Once again, there is a wonderful control scheme that allows you to choose between the standard and more complex control setup.
That is solid pass coverage all around.
Where there are some clear differences is in the AI. The money plays and bugs from last year are for the most part fixed. On top of that, the computer is a little better about throwing the ball. In the end, there's nothing all that wrong with Game Breaker 2001, but nothing all that different. So if you have last year's version and aren't a diehard fan, it may not warrant a purchase. GameSpot gives it an 8.2 out of 10. Unquestionably, one of the most popular football games is EA's Madden series, and the 2001 version is changed most noticeably in its much-needed graphical improvements. The gameplay is very similar to its predecessor, except that the inclusion of NFL coaches' actual playbooks will keep you from using certain formations unless you edit them yourself.
Stewart with a man in motion.
Other elements of the gameplay display some various problems. The running game forces you to rely too heavily on the juke button when cutting upfield. Also, the passing is played with inconsistency on the part of receivers who seem to whimsically catch or drop the ball. The game does redeem itself with effective online play, but the control issues keep the game from being completely enjoyable or realistic. Gamespot gives it a 7 out of 10.
Dawson places it long.
Similar to Game Breaker, NFL's Game Day is also very little change from last year's iteration. The gameplay is recognizably good, with its total control passing, running, and the proven gameplay of the Game Day series. The game doesn't offer much new, but it's just as good as last year's model. Similarly, the graphics are near identical to last year's game, but they do have the addition of new animations and stadium models. On top of that, the player models have improved enough to better resemble their real-life counterparts.
With a laser shot there. Touchdown Rams.
As you can tell, the lack of big differences between this and last year's Game Day make it worth a rental first to see if the modest changes are enough for you to warrant a purchase. Nonetheless, it's a fine football game in the Game Day tradition. GameSpot gives it a 7.9 out of 10.
Now, you may have noticed the absence of one particular football game. That's NFL 2K1. Do not fear, the review is on its way. Now, Parasite Eve was a horror RPG from Square. It had amazing cutscenes, but some problematic gameplay. Now, they retooled the game to make it more like a Resident Evil survival horror game. Let's see what the result is.
Parasite Eve 2 is an action-adventure game with an impressive cinematic style. The sequel takes place shortly after the events of its predecessor, Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve was a genuinely spooky action-adventure title in which police officer Aya Brea saved the world from a mutated mitochondrial menace. Most of the original RPG elements have been replaced with a survival horror style a la Resident Evil. Graphically, Parasite Eve 2 definitely hits its marks. The static settings are well detailed, from ambient lighting to glossy marble floors. Detailed doesn't necessarily mean pretty. These monsters are mutated humans and animals that can give you a serious case of the creeps. Thanks to Parasite Eve 2's totally overhauled combat, you can shoot the monster first and ask questions later. Battle is in real time. Aya has more than conventional weapons at her disposal. She can also use one of her Parasite Energy, or PE, powers. These powers are divided among 3 abilities in each of the 4 elements that cover everything from healing to immolation. Aya unlocks and improves her PE powers with the experience points she earns for killing monsters. In addition to experience, Aya gains bounty points for each kill, which she uses to buy weapons, ammo, and armor, an RPG element that shouldn't have made it into the sequel. At least Parasite Eve 2 features a helpful mapping system that keeps you from getting lost as you run back and forth to unlock new doors. Parasite Eve 2 still maintains a few of its predecessor's gameplay bogging RPG elements, but is still a definite improvement over the original. It's a stylish, well-designed title and close contender with all the latest horror-themed action-adventure games. Gamespot.com gives Parasite Eve 2 a 7.4 out of 10. Coming up on Gamespot TV, there's sheer madness ahead in our preview of Sheep. And Fozzie Bear and Gonzo learn how to drive in Muppet Race Mania.
at Gamespot TV at Metreon. Now, when I was a kid, I don't know about you, the Muppets had a remarkable influence upon my life.
Never, ever missed them. My favorites were Gonzo and Miss Piggy. You?
It was Fozzie Bear.
Never would have done that. Well, now, you can take your favorite Muppets, stick them in a cart, and go racing.
Hey, Kermit. Yeah? Are bears allowed no stopping? What? Are bears allowed no stopping? No, I don't think so. I need a bath.
From the get-go, Muppet Race Mania is like any number of other kart racing games.
Hi-ho, Kermit the Frog here.
You pick from a group of 8 Muppets who come with their own custom vehicles. For example, Gonzo's spaceship or Miss Piggy's monster truck. And then you're off, ready to kick some Muppet butt. There are 2 things that will make this one stand out from the current kart pack, however. First, there's a great deal of variety in the game's tracks. Most are played from the standard third-person kart perspective, and there are a variety of weapons scattered around the track that can be used to take out opponents. For example, bombs and heat-seeking chickens. The most striking feature, though, is the stunt course, which is played from a side perspective and involves no opponent. The only objective in a stunt race is to finish the course, which is no small feat, since stunt courses are full of jumps, bridges, and other obstacles.
I told you we'd win.
Secondly, Muppet Race Mania has obvious Muppet appeal. The game's tracks are all based on the Muppet movies, and cutscenes from the respective movies accompany each of the tracks.
Just leave it to me.
Once you rev up your engine, it won't take long till you're humming the Rainbow Connection. The game will be available in October, so Jim Henson fans old and new can once again get in touch
Oh, look.
with their inner Muppet.
Hotel. Wow. If that's the Happiness Hotel, I'd hate to see what the sad one looks like.
You know, somehow it just seems entirely appropriate that Miss Piggy's driving a monster truck. Now, our next game is a puzzle game out for PC and PlayStation. So, Little Bo Peep, pay attention. Once upon a time, the ancestors of modern sheep came from outer space and were sent to Earth to pose as farm animals and study the habitat. Over the years, these alien sheep forgot their mission and became stupid, eventually becoming domesticated by man. And now, the sheep leaders have returned to Earth to round up their fellow aliens without attracting attention. Their solution? Brainwash the Earthlings and give them a driving urge to herd sheep. This is where the game begins. The sheep herder herds a flock to a variety of environments while keeping them out of trouble. The game features 4 different herder characters, 4 types of sheep, and 7 different worlds, each consisting of 4 levels full of obstacles, traps, and predators. Each of the 4 herder characters in the game have different strengths and weaknesses. Bo Peep and Adam Halfpint are humans, one a rock star and the other a private eye. Motley and Shep are dogs. Motley has a problem with timidity, and Shep is getting slow and blind with age. The 4 types of sheep include modern pastoral, modern pastoral, long wool, and the neo-genetics. Since they aren't very bright, they're constantly getting sucked into ventilation ducts, kicked by bulls, crushed by tractors, and many other sad events. You can save them at the end of 2000 when Empire releases the game. Coming up on Gamespot TV, we show off the best downloads on the net, and we have a strategy guide for the brilliant Square RPG Chrono Cross. Gamespot TV at Metreon. You know, one of the best things about being a PC gamer is downloading demos for free.
Yes, now there are many of them that are out there, so we've decided to go ahead and pick some of our favorites.
Attempting for deeper action gameplay is Delta Force Land Warrior. The game is initially notable because, unlike previous Delta Force titles, it does fully support 3D acceleration, and as a result, it looks very good.
It's a goal!
It's a little heavy-handed in its militaristic viewpoint, but the demo offers a tense experience of trying to liberate deadly biological materials from terrorists in Egypt's Valley of the Kings. Without health nor extra ammo, the demo forces you to rely on stealth and planning. You can't rush into a battle because one bullet usually means the end. It's not for everyone, but it's definitely worth checking out if you're intrigued. If there's one PC game that's worth checking out so far this year, it's Deus Ex. The game is a hybrid of a shooter and a role-playing game, as you build the specialties of a mechanized United Nations operative. Deus Ex is the closest one can come to feeling like they have free decision-making in a game. Playing the demo won't mimic the immersiveness of the entire title, but if you want to know what all the hullabaloo has been about, this is an excellent way to discover it.
That's the difference right there.
While it's been on the internet for a while now, if you haven't heard of Serious Sam and you like a good hyperactive shooter, you need to be acquainted. Developed by a Croatian development team called Crow Team, the game is an attempt to capture the overwhelming experience of the classic Doom. The game pits you against hordes and hordes of wonderfully inventive creatures that come at you in increasingly larger numbers as you desperately attempt to deal with them with less and less time to think. The game is also notable for its open and bright level design from an entirely original engine. No, this is not a thinking man's game, but there's a lot of adrenaline pumping after just 5 minutes of play.
If you like any or all of those downloads we just showed you, they're available for your hard drive at the Gamespot TV website. Now, given the wild success of Pokemon, it would only seem natural that there be a few imitators. And our intro of the week comes from one of them, the digital version, Digimon.
Those of you with allergies, the Digimon would be a great pet. Now, Chrono Cross, of course, is a very popular game right now, beautifully done, and it's also very involved. We thought you might want a little bit of help with it, so take a look at our strategy guide. Giant poisonous insects, tree-hugging dwarfs, man-eating doors? It's just another day in the world of Chrono Cross. The baddies might have the edge, but what they did not anticipate is that we at Gamespot have a strategy guide up our sleeve. And with that, we give you the Chrono Cross Constellation Compendium. Lesson 1. If you don't know what to do next, change your reality. Always check both your home world and the alternate world during your quest. For this, you'll need the Astral Amulet, which you'll get after your first encounter with me. Once you have it, go to Opasa Beach. Walk around until the sand below you glows, then use the amulet. Always keep this in mind, since some missions will require interdimensional travel. Lesson 2. In battle, don't let your pride get the better of you. By this we mean, don't be afraid to run away if the odds are against you. Chrono Cross is the first RPG that allows you to retreat from your boss battles, and we recommend you make use of this feature. Now you can take a time out and regroup. This is very helpful for when bosses catch you with your pants down. And when it comes down to it, what would you rather be, smart or dead with your pants down? Lesson 3. If they show themselves, they'll want a party. Some non-player characters will show his or her face in the spoken text box. That's the game trying to tell you that this person is a potential party member. Sometimes they'll want to join you when you first meet them. Other times they'll have to fulfill certain requirements before you can enlist them. Lesson 4. The world map is the largest save point of them all. We know the importance of saving games, especially in RPGs. In the case of Chrono Cross, this is done by touching the records of fate, those gleaming pyramids that can be found in certain areas of the game. But what you might not know is that you can also use the world map to save your progress. Simply stand anywhere in the world map screen and go to the Load Save menu. So remember, visit other worlds, swallow your pride, keep enlisting, and save, save, save. So we're betting you're going to want to take another look at that Chrono Cross strategy guide. But don't worry, it's all at techtv.com/Gamespot TV.
And if you have Chrono Cross on the mind, unload your feelings at our chat, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern.
We'd like to thank Metreon for hosting us today, and you can find out more about them at metreon.com.
So that's it for today, and until next week,
Game over.